Freedom!
So fresh, so new.
Freedom!
It's all for you.
All for you. Freedom!
Keep your ear to the ground.
Talking about the freedom!
It's the best show in town.
Let's show me that freedom! Well, freedom!
Master Jujiner. I'm probably mispronouncing her name, for which I apologize. Queen C7 is a kind of a random looking move aimed specifically at stopping some of the things white can do, but allowing some others. Queen d2 a3 I quite like. I'm postponing bishop b7 here in order for me to get perhaps the bishop will be better placed on d7, but that's very unclear. I might actually play h5 here, kind of try to get the game into the territory which I think of the current players, MVL is a huge fan of doing this against the English attack setups. This is a kind of a strange equilibrium type situation where it's very difficult for black to start what amounts to the normal counterplay on the queen side, because the pawn on a3 is very, very useful at stopping b5 before play, at least until I go rook b8. And even after that, it's not clear that I will have enough time to play b4. But the pawn on h5 also does a pretty decent job of not allowing g4 play. And yeah, this is the sacrifice I was talking about. It's generally very dangerous in positions like this. And for some reason here, what I thought I will do here is just completely impossible. So I think I'm in a lot of trouble instantly. I kind of knew I have to pay attention to this, and then my brain just didn't process the information that I was trying to feed it. Yeah, I'm in a lot of trouble here. For some reason, I only counted on bishop takes b5 instead of what happened, and the fact that the c4 square is under control here is going to be a very, very large issue. But not much I can do about it. I just have to allow this endgame and play it to the best of my ability. But yeah, this is, with the knight on c3 and the bishop on e2 gone, this would have been, I could play knight c4, and it's quite unclear. But against the two bishops here, yeah, black is in a lot of trouble. Like, it's hard to overstate just how much trouble I'm in here. h4 is just a random move aimed at, I don't know, trying to psych my opponent out a little bit. I would like to play bishop d7, but I have a feeling this move just loses by fours. But if I play castles, there are other issues with it. Like bishop g5 is quite strong and so on. But it's very difficult to suggest anything that would be like significantly stronger than what I'm doing. So I'm going to continue doing it. h3, I think, gives me an important tempo to, try to fight for some kind of counterplay. I'm not sure if the viewers can actually see what I'm drawing on the screen here. I have a feeling that all of my carefully constructed arrows are not being immediately obvious, and I should probably stop drawing them. But yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I've been doing quite okay with arrows in this game. I've been doing much better with the arrows than I've been doing on the board. Let's put it like this. I'm on fire drawing arrows today. The position is still quite bad, but at least some pieces came out, which is obviously a huge plus. King f8 and then king g. Like, whichever piece I take with is going to be a waste of a tempo, but I think this maybe is slightly stronger. Yeah, but like the a pawn is now running, and I don't know if my previous evaluation was correct. I don't know if I can even afford to like start attacking the g2 pawn. I don't think it will be fast enough, which is a very, very large issue, obviously. Like my I do have some counterplay on the king side, but it's just so slow that I just don't foresee it ever being effective. And if I switch to defense, I definitely get overrun on the king on the queen side. So there is like no good way to proceed here. I think I get destroyed regardless. This just doesn't do enough. Exactly. Yeah, like this just doesn't do anywhere near enough to stop the procession. I want to play rook b8, but then even a6 wins, which is a very large issue. And this knight is extremely dead. I don't know where to put it. On a7, it can be attacked by bishop c5, and I don't know what my next move even is against bishop c5, to be honest. But once again, there is just no better choices. So I'm making some moves, hoping that maybe at some point my opponent will do something that gives me a chance. But so far, nothing in this game suggests that I will have a chance. I would have maybe played bishop c5 on the previous move in her spot, because driving the knight away would have been useful, but yeah, this should be winning. This is a bit... Oh, okay, the b pawn is now going to run. That's actually very clever. What can I do about it? Honestly, not very much. Yeah, just c3 wins, I think. Yeah, this is very, very resignable now. And yeah, the game was pretty much lost in the opening when I allowed specifically the thing that I allowed. Yeah, that is quite efficient. Yeah, I should just resign here. That's a very nicely played game by my opponent, but it was kind of weird that I knew that knight takes b5 is maybe the main thing I have to be watching out for in this position on move 11, and then I allowed it anyway, which is not ideal. Okay, we start with a loss, not unexpectedly, but then I get to play white for a bit against Gukesh, who probably just starts as a favorite against me on this evidence. But we'll see. Maybe I can actually... This is apparently very, very topical. And it's kind of upsetting because I could have actually known something about this line. There was an opportunity for me to actually learn something about this. an opportunity which I missed. So I am now going, sort of proceeding along the lines of very, very brief, I wouldn't even call it analysis, but like I watched some games being played in this line during the Russian clubs. And I am now trying to not exactly remember, but sort of reproduce what I thought might be good, based, I think, quite heavily on what the engine was suggesting, of course. Like you can't really play positions like this without engine help. And I think it will backfire. I think bishop b3 might be stronger than bishop c2 here, because bishop c2 doesn't actually create a threat of bishop takes f5, and I suspect my opponent is going to play bishop b6 anyway, regardless of what I do. Or h6. h6 is a clever move in these types of positions for sure, stopping bishop g5 altogether. I think knight e2, knight g3 probably isn't very stupid. Unless I blundered bishop e4, in which case it might be very stupid actually. Knight g3, bishop e4, how bad is it? Might be quite bad, but we'll persevere. I have some ways of dealing with that. You always want to start calculating bishop takes h6 in positions like this, but it's probably a little bit too early. But when I said I had some ways of dealing with that, I meant specifically the idea of allowing gf, which my opponent decides to not even avail himself of, which is interesting. I would have been a lot more excited about it if I were in his spot. There is some knight e4 and e6 shenanigans I could try to calculate, but that would involve calculating. And obviously nobody wants to do that ever. I could go knight takes e4 and knight d2. That also kind of involves calculating. Let's just make the move I wanted to make and see where it goes. I am probably now threatening knight takes e4. I also want to play rook c1 and then like go back to figuring out what my options are. Playing f2, f4 at some point might not be the stupidest idea in the world either, so it's a very complicated position. But as I said, it probably pays to actually know something about it, and I honestly, slightly due to circumstances out of my control, so I can't blame myself too hard, I passed up on an opportunity to learn something about this line about a week ago. At least I made my opponent think for the first time in this game, which is invaluable. I guess knight a5, knight c4 is something I should be watching out for, in particular if, let's say, he starts with rook a d8 here, which is a very solid move. But if he goes rook a d8, ideas of knight takes e4 and then e6 become maybe more attractive. I do want to include rook c1 though. Yeah, after bishop h7, I thought I definitely want to include rook c1, but then knight a5. Bishop h6 is just such a yeah, I think I want to do this first. And if knight a5 happens, I will be very, very attracted to ideas of bishop h6 in some fashion. f6 exists. Yeah, here I think I need to preserve this bishop. This is how I thought I will go about things. Like I go bishop a2 here, and next move I am snapping on h6. Yeah, I just don't want to calculate. I'm just doing this and kind of, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Life is too short not to sacrifice such pieces. f5 is interesting. It does require my opponent to return some material though, and I don't know how happy he will be returning material here. But I think including some more pieces in the defense and, you know, being ready to give up some material to perhaps dilute my attack a little bit is, yeah, this is a good move, I think. I think this is the way to go. And yeah, I haven't really figured out what my plan is in this position yet. I can go knight f6 check, but there's definitely, like, I have to trade so many of my attackers if I do that, that I'm kind of sad about that prospect. There might not be anything stronger. EF is very meh. Rook c3, g3 exists, but also feels very meh. Yeah, I think I have to go with this, but I'm quite unhappy about it. Queen f7 is probably quite strong, but if he does go queen f7, at least I get to win some material back and we get a reasonably unclear position. Yeah, this is, of course, a very major idea as well. But now I have some rook e1 e7 ideas, and the bishop on b6 is kind of disconnected from the defense. Rook c3, g3 is also always something that needs to be considered in his spot. So what do I do here? Yeah, rook f8 is very, very strong next move. I can't actually stop rook f8, which is extremely annoying. This doesn't really do very much. You can actually even take... Yeah, like this is definitely quite playable for him. And by playable, I probably mean that he is winning here, although that is not certain. This is probably not a good move, but I kind of want to try to lock out the bishop on d6 for as long as possible. Yeah, well, I didn't blunder, but yeah, that's very nice by me. I didn't actually see that I have queen h4 check there, but it's a clever little idea, which I kind of lucked out with, I think, mainly. Is this enough of a threat for me to be worried about? I will bet on no. I think I will actually swindle my way out of this game, shockingly. Yeah, very, very interesting game, very interesting line, which apparently is quite fashionable now. I'm pretty sure I was lost at some point. I must have been lost at some point, but I mean, I'll take it. And this game is against Aditya Mittal. Probably time for me to try to demonstrate how I already cannot reproduce any of the theory I have worked on for the past 3 months. Like, there's no way I will be able to remember what I give in the course here. I should go for some of that spaced repetition malarkey that people are doing. I think that's probably a smart idea. Just writing the material is clearly not enough. You have to also be able to orient yourself in it later. E5 is playable here. C5 is also borderline playable, but you have to be fast because otherwise I think you get mated in positions like this. I can go knight f6 and then go for some kind of undermining tactics. I'm very attracted to the idea of playing e5, though. Although, I mean, the kinds of positions I will be getting there are probably not that much fun. If I go knight f6, what are the options for my opponent? Like queen e2 is playable. I can play something there. Let's try playing slower and see what happens. I guess e5 and then h5 is very, very valid as an attempt for for my opponent here, but yeah, I just wanted to see what will happen if I just play extremely slowly here. I don't think I get mated if the exchange gets sacrificed on the king side here. And if I don't get instantly mated there, maybe I can push c5 next move, and then I will have some counterplay of my own. I could have considered playing knight h5, honestly, but just to make sure that like white needs to spend a tempo against the idea of knight f4, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, this is a kind of a very curious type structure, which you sometimes see where, yeah, like if this happens, I now have the D and the C file to generate counterplay. Pushing h5 continues to be non-trivial, and also h5 does not win the game on the spot by any means. It's a very solid thing I have to watch out for in every single position, but it doesn't end the game. It's just annoying. So it becomes a lot harder for white to achieve anything substantial quickly, and the queen could go to h5 if it's like against bishop d4, for instance. I think queen h5 here is a very solid idea, just to stop the push on the king side. I think it's actually a good square, because now that it's there, like all of the jumps with the knight on f3 are much less attractive. White might need to spend a tempo on something like queen e3, and I get my tempo to play rook fd8 and then kind of reevaluate. I don't think g4 is a threat. Bishop takes f6 and g4 can be played, of course, but yeah, I'm not, honestly, I was going to say I'm not scared of that, but there's actually rook c7 after that, which I realized only much later. Yeah, g4 immediately. I somehow, yeah, I've just completely misevaluated all of this, honestly. Now that I look at this position, this might be extremely bad because of rook c7. I missed rook c7 in pretty much every single position here, and it's going to be very, very painful to deal with. I don't know if I have a good way to deal with it, honestly, because I can play rook b8, but I have a feeling if I play rook b8 here, I'm like, it's kind of resigning if I play rook b8. And rook d3, knight f2 doesn't work either. So yeah, my assumptions about this position were based on rook c7 not happening. And because it is happening, I'm not sure how I'm even supposed to continue. I have some jumps, like I have some really, really speculative jumps, which might give me like drawing chances, like this maybe. And I think in my opponent's shoes, like I have a feeling knight g5 actually is a lot stronger than knight takes h2. I think after knight g5, my position is borderline resignable, honestly. I have some, yeah, I don't know if I can even continue after knight g5. Looks winning to me. Just looks completely winning to me. Just knight g5, queen e2, bishop e2. And everything is hanging, and the knight on h2 will never come out. Probably should have tried knight e5 instead, but I wanted to drive the knight all the way to h2 instead of e5. e5 is a nice central square. Yeah, this is very strong. This is very, very strong. We should probably do something like this to continue kind of trying to bamboozle my opponent, but I don't know how much bamboozling you can actually do in a position like this. It's just a very, very bad position. Yeah, this looks quite strong. This probably gives mate. I mean, rook g6 followed by knight f6 seems very, very threatening. What can I do about it? I can do this maybe to sort of disincentivize moving the rook away from the first. And obviously, my opponent having 10 seconds is extremely valuable to me here. I honestly don't see exactly how I lose here. I think this might be a draw now. This is not very deserved, but it's better than resigning. Yeah, I think I probably... Yeah, I mean, I know exactly where I went wrong in this game. And I got severely punished for it and only barely survived. White against Nihal Sarin, this will be a problem. Well, everything is a problem, but this will be a particular problem. Okay. Unfair. Let's play something I have no idea about. My experience with this line is extremely limited and not very happy either, but it's a line. Why is this not supposed to equalize exactly? Who knows? Like, this looks to me like it's a decent version of the position they are trying to get in every single line these days in the Caro. Maybe I'm not supposed to take on f6, but it's hard for me to imagine not taking on f6 in that position, honestly. Feels extremely artificial to be doing anything else. I used to play these positions as white as a kid, but I would have a pawn on d4, not on d3. And they were supposed to be a little bit better for white, but I don't know if that holds true with the pawn on d3. And this could go in a variety of ways, like my opponent, exactly. Like he could castle long here, and then it becomes a little bit of a race, in which honestly I don't know if I'm going to be fast or not. But we will try. I can put a stop to at least some of the black's counterplay on the king side here by playing knight h4. I just want to time knight h4 properly. And I think I now realize why I should have done this already on the previous move. Because I think if my opponent plays h5, if I play knight h4 on any of the following moves, bishop g4 becomes an option which wasn't there a moment ago. But yeah, mainly I'm just trying to push like before b5, open up some play for myself on the queen side, while also, you know, trying valiantly not to get mated on the king side here. And as I already mentioned in one of the previous games as well, yeah, I think flagging is going to be my main weapon today. I don't appear to be outplaying any of these kids. It's not really surprising to me either. But I am seemingly, at least in some cases, playing faster than them. Do I need to stop h4, or should I encourage h4 and just accept the exchange sacrifice? I think I probably should stop it. Bishop g4, I do have f3. So it's an extremely committal move for Nihal to make here if he goes bishop g4, because it will allow me to triple his f-pawns. But f3 is also a very, very committal, softening move, which honestly, despite him tripling his f-pawns, might not be good for me. This is sort of easier to handle. The knight on h4 is not very beautiful, but at least I know what my play is in this position. It's just, you know, pushing things on the queen side and seeing what sticks. f5, f4 is an option for black, but I don't know how good it is. I think I'll play bishop b3. I think bishop takes a7 is a legitimate threat that he needs to at least assess. I wouldn't say he needs to be fearful of it, but he definitely needs to at least assess if it's any good. Like knight g4, bishop a7, b6 definitely exists in this position, for instance. But it allows me to open a decent amount on the queen side. Yeah, knight g6 I was much less worried about, because I think I get to open some files. I get to open some files, and I get to open them before my kingside position gets completely blown up, which is obviously like the whole game here is a race of who achieves more on the other flank. I think I'm currently ahead in the race, but I'm not entirely convinced of that either. But I think I'm ahead because I can even, if all else fails, I can actually take a takes b. And this is a strange move. I don't think he has enough time to switch to defense. Yeah, this doesn't seem right to me. This should not work. It still requires precision when trying to punish it, obviously, but this should not work. Stopping queen takes a5 seems important, and now we can go like a6 and rook takes a6 and go from there. Yeah, like upsettingly, I'm not immediately winning here. Maybe I am actually. Hang on a second. I can do something beautiful here. That's actually not that beautiful. Bishop takes f4, rook takes e6 was my plan, but yeah, it's probably not as beautiful as all that. Is this winning? I'll play it because it's fun. I don't know if it's winning, but I'll play it. I think it is winning. And rook b7, and we have successfully chased the queen away. This is the first game, I think, where I wasn't in any significant trouble at any point, so it's a very important milestone for today. Next game is against Gunay Mamazada. Don't know what to expect opening-wise here, but at least I've gotten on the scoreboard properly, which is always a cheerful thought. Let's continue playing Sicilians. My first Sicilian was so horrible, I feel like I need to rehabilitate myself. Yeah, the first Najdorf was played so unbelievably poorly that I just feel like it needs to be, the taste of it needs to be washed away somehow. I obviously don't really remember any move orders anymore, which is unhelpful when trying to play the Najdorf, but this shouldn't be a mistake. The big question, obviously, is going to be, do I want to play the h5 systems or not? And yeah, 4-in-1 move is definitely a very important option in this position. It's something I've done quite a lot myself from the white side. I think I was one of the earlier adopters of this idea. But it doesn't win the game, it just leads to very interesting positions. I don't know about Queen C7. Queen C7 may not have been the best reply. I'm a bit worried about the position after knight d5. But my moves here, like my hands are somewhat tied. I don't know if bishop b7 or rook c8 is... I think bishop b7 is a move I will always make, and rook c8 sometimes gets saved on, like in some corner cases, the other rook might go to c8 later, so I think I should start with bishop b7. Yeah, I think we just castle here and get mated after f5 and g4, obviously. I'm only half joking, but that mating attack is somewhat slower than it might appear at first glance. I probably shouldn't be allowing it so, blithely, but I think we can. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can take in positions like this and then go for like. Hang on a second. I need to calculate. Maybe in this particular position I can't take because of how the pieces are standing. This is obviously incredibly committal, and I'm kind of having regrets here. It's not often made, but it is definitely made in some cases, and it might be one of those cases here, but I think I can do it. I looked at a great number of these positions, mainly from the white side, but that was about 20 years ago. And I think it's kind of important for me to have the queen on d8 so that there are never any forks on d5 to worry about. And this is going to be quite painful now. I think I'm supposed to take and play either g6 or king h8, and they both have some merit. If I take on f1 here, do I get immediately mated? Is also kind of an important question to determine. Because if I allow bishop c4 and knight d5, it feels like I'm sort of never going to recover from that. Which means that like my options are, hang on a second, there's also like things are coming back to me, but extremely slowly. And yeah, it's such a tough position to play well. I think there's also this option, right? Maybe it's not great in this particular position, but it definitely is a move that is sometimes quite smart in these types of positions. Just driving the queen to g3 and then playing g6 and not committing with bishop takes f1. And if bishop c4, bc4, knight d2 happens, it happens, but it also opens up, obviously, some files for me to generate counterplay on the queen's side. Also, this game, coupled with the first game I lost against Jujiner, is probably enough evidence for me to stop playing the Sicilian today, because I am most assuredly not doing it right. I might get away with it again, even that is like unclear, but I might. But I'm definitely not doing it in any kind of a convincing fashion. I think we go rook c8 here, or maybe even rook f8. I don't know if I'm getting mated quickly enough for me to get instantly punished for rook f8. I'm kind of worried about bishop h3 though. But I want to have both the A file and the B file available to me when the trade on c4 happens, if it happens. So, like on those grounds, putting this rook on c8 is definitely extremely justified. After bishop h3, I do have the exchange sacrifice to try if all else fails. Also, obviously, I'm removing an important defender from my king by removing the rook from f8. So it's all very, very double-edged. Like all of my decisions here they have lots of both pluses and minuses, but this is what I settled on. Knight f6, rook d6 is quite scary, but I do have some counterplay of my own. And maybe even just go king g7, honestly. And then rook b8, rook b2 will become a significant topic of discussion. Unless I get immediately mated there, but I don't think I am. I can also play queen e7 after rook d6, and then maybe c3. And also my opponent is down to 4 seconds. I'm hoping there are no internet issues. I really wouldn't want to. I can also throw in knight h5 here, but I don't think I need to. I wouldn't want to start winning games on time. Like, specifically and exclusively on time is not how I would like to win today. I don't know. It feels like I should be I should be giving mate here somehow. d5, rook b2, some kind of stuff like that. It's probably incorrect, but I want to try it because it's fun. Yeah, this is not not a very convincing Najdorf yet again. Like, I have no illusions on that count, but the final position might be fine for me, for all we know. Or it might be a completely incorrect rook sacrifice, and just taking on king b1 is saving my opponent there. Next one is against Sarasadat. Spanish is maybe slightly safer for me than the Najdorfs with black. This opening. This opening I'm supposed to know something about, but obviously all of that is sometime in the past. I can maybe pretend, though. Somewhat convincingly. It's kind of annoying how impossible this opening is to play without properly repeating your notes before the game. Unless you, I mean, if you're okay not having anything out of the opening, it's obviously completely fine, just as anything else is fine. But these days, I think if you want to fight for advantage with white here, you do have to come extremely armed. And I may have had something to do with it, honestly, but obviously I can't remember anything anymore from the chess 24 course. h6 is fine. I think this is likely going to be one of the positions. Like, this is a very famous game between Fabi and Magnus, right? Where Fabi at some point just played g2, g4. I don't know if it was exactly this position or maybe some position heavily adjacent to this. And also, like, I want to play knight f1, but then rook e8 kind of bugs me because after knight g3, I have a feeling the pawn on e4 might be takeable. All of this is like very, very unclear, though. Let's see what happens here. I'm pretty sure this is not the main move, though. I have a feeling I'm supposed to play something else. I've calculated some kind of a very speculative line after rook e8, knight g3, d4, cd4, knight takes e4, which looks playable to me, so I'm just going to play it. But yeah, and I think I no longer really have any way back. I need to continue gambling with this, because if I play d5 too early, I just don't like the kinds of positions white gets if he plays d5 too early in this structure. Although that's probably just my personal preference. I think those positions are very, 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 very playable for white. So the idea here is, if black takes twice, I can play bishop c2, and after the rook goes away, I can play queen d3 and try to provoke some weakening moves, because queen h7 would be a very strong threat. Knight e7 is something they often play in positions like this, but now d5 becomes a lot more attractive, and also I can start calculating something with e5, and once again, some sacrifices on the king side might present themselves. But I think d5, bishop b3, rook e3 is just very solid here. Because I think with the knight already on g3, there's a huge difference in these types of positions if my knight is already on g3 compared to it being still on d2. Because I will, I think, have genuine initiative in the center against the c6 break. Like, the knight landing on f5 is going to be quite difficult for black to deal with efficiently. And now we can try to just not allow c6 at all. And then the bishop on b7 gets sort of frozen out of the game, which is, of course, very, very useful for us. I think the bishop has done its job on b3, and I want to have the option of playing b2, b4 here. And this is quite nicely done by Sarah. I kind of wanted the second rook lift, and it's now heavily discouraged. I can play knight f5, but bishop c8 kind of bothers me. Knight f5, knight h5 in general would have been quite interesting here as an idea. I can start with knight h5, but then, yeah, maybe I can start with knight h5 and just kind of try to scare my opponent into some indiscretions. Because knight f5 is I think a genuinely worrying thing here for black to consider. And I definitely do not care about the pawn on b2. So after knight c4, I would have been very happily giving it up. But yeah, this is looking very, very suspect now because everything is hanging. And this is what I meant about the difference of having knight on d2, having it on g3, because from g3 it can definitely launch itself at the black king side with on this evidence with quite devastating effects. This is a bit of a Svidler resignation. I salute my opponent. It's a bit early, but the position is bad. Next one is against Leah Garifulina, who is one of the brightest young Russian talents. I met her a couple of times. She is a very talented young woman. Actually, this starts a bit of a civil war type sequence of this event, because I will be playing Leah and then Volodar Morzin in the next one, and then Polina Shuvalova after that. Not quite sure why the game is not starting, but yeah, we're on now. Yeah, I should just stop playing Sicilians today. Sicilians are not my thing, apparently. Neither is Caracan, but what to do? Nothing is my thing, exactly. And I've never actually played the classical Caro. In the rare cases when people forced me to play the mainline Caro, because most people play e5, I've played knight d7 instead of bishop f5. This is extremely old theory where, yeah, I think most people these days, just as I realize now, probably just don't play knight d7 at all. They play with a knight on b8, and then they can play e6, c5 lines, which are a lot faster than what I'm trying to do. Yeah, and these positions are just not very much fun. Should have maybe tried playing some of my own openings, but that is such a revolutionary idea. I will only give it a passing mention. I've always been curious about these positions, but not curious enough to actually play them in my own games. I used to play the classical against the Caro, but I switched to 3-5 very, very long time ago. And on the black side, as I mentioned, I play the Caro every now and again, but I play it normally these days, considering what the statistic percentages are. You are expected to see 3-5 much more than you are expected to see third knight c3. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. I remember some snippets of really, really old theory, and that's about it. I think the main move here is g3, but obviously it's impossible to go badly wrong in this position. For some reason, I think knight c5 is supposed to be slightly more precise than, sorry, then let's say taking on e4 and going knight f6. I think black is supposed to be winning some kind of a half a tempo somewhere by doing this. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah, this is a solid move. I need to figure out where my pieces go. I think bishop d6 should be a reasonable start, but I definitely would have, I would much rather play this with white and not with black, but since I'm somehow here, playing it with black, we will continue pretending. It's important not to blunder. Like if I play king b8 here, I think rook d6, bishop f4 is a very classic combo that many people have blundered over the years. So I will try not to. Probably should never ever allow knight b5 in these types of positions, so I will play a6 just as a kind of a universal failsafe. Even though I think in some cases you might be excused allowing it. Rook d7 is okay. I'm wondering about knight d5, but I think rook d7, rook h d8 is pretty much never going to be a mistake. Knight b3, yeah, I was wondering about that. I was expecting it and kind of wondering about that. Yeah, maybe I should have given my previous move slightly more thought, because what I was planning to do here is probably not that great objectively. It's kind of sharp though, in as much as anything is sharp in these types of positions. Yeah, this endgame is potentially quite interesting, because black at some point starts trying to break up the bishop f1 is interesting. I was expecting bishop d4, but I think bishop c1, but maybe this is a good move. Honestly, I think I'm undecided on where I would have wanted to put that bishop myself. I think b5 b4 is always going to be. Is it now? Yeah, I think I have to play b4 here. But then, let's say after bishop d2, I'm not entirely sure how I'm making any progress. I have a kind of a solid position, once again, for a kind of a very loose definition of solid. I'm definitely playing f5, though. I think f5 is very much part of how you create counterplay here, because after gf, ef, the knight goes to f6 and the pawn h5 starts hanging. So that is definitely part of the general way of creating counterplay here. Probably bishop takes. Both are okay. Actually, maybe king takes is smarter. So we acquire the pawn on h5. It's still going to take some converting. But I assume, somewhat better here. I don't know why I assume that. Like I have an outside passer, but knight e2 is the first move in a while that I really, really dislike from my opponent. I think it's too slow. Yeah, and like how are you stopping the h pawn now? I guess knight d3, knight f2, which means that I have to do. No, that doesn't really work either, right? It just runs. It just runs. Yeah, I think there may have been some mistakes as the time became quite short from my opponent. But yeah, there was an interesting endgame to begin with. I don't know how to assess it properly. White against Volodar Murzin, who is a very, very promising youngster, has done quite well in a lot of junior championships. Wouldn't want to lie to you about his exact record, but very strong player already. I assume most of you have at least heard of him. I've been playing more or less exclusively e4 here, so no real reason to stop. Most people play c5 in this position now. It's interesting to me that Volodar doesn't. Knight g7 might be a very good move as well, and like this transposes into the old theory. But a lot of people were kind of purposefully avoiding it and playing the more forcing lines with the quick fire c5 there. Yeah, this is a curious type of position where I think the danger here is just to overthink things. We'll just play g3. I think g3 is probably not a move you absolutely need to make in this position, but it's going to be, it's unlikely to be a bad mistake, and it's kind of a default move I make in these types of positions anyway. Actually, c5 is playable. It's very annoying to me. I thought I kind of, well, not stopped exactly, but I thought I heavily discouraged c6, c5 exactly here because of h5. But c5, h5, c4 is very, very playable for black. In fact, it's probably just very strong. And that makes my previous play, I think, is quite dubious. This at least achieves something, I think, by pushing the knight to f8. Black is probably fine-ish, but I quite like these structures from the white side. Maybe more than they deserve to be liked. You play king g. Yeah, like this is going to be impossible to stop, so I'm just going to allow my opponent to push c5 if he wants, and then I will put the knight on d4 and pretend I might eventually have some attack on the king side. I don't know how much of an attack I actually have there. It's very unclear to me. Yeah, so we go king g2 here. We eventually plonk the knight on d4. and then we, start pretending that we have some f4 or 5 play, which we might even actually do for all I know. Obviously, black gets a lot of play on the queen side in the meantime. I'm trying to figure out how to place my pieces here so that they don't get harassed too much. This is probably not a good move because black probably is going to vacate the c5 square and then go knight c5, knight e4. So I have actually put my queen on a square where I will have to think again about where it goes in the not very distant future here. But I was trying to avoid like queen b5 and queen a6 ideas. Because endgames here I think are quite decent for black, and I'm definitely trying, making a conscious effort here not to let this become an endgame. I could arguably play knight g4 and then f3 and push for the g4, g5 plan on the king side instead of f4 or 5, which does not allow the knight to land on e4. This is, I think, a very interesting choice, maybe even a good one, but I think this like heavily incentivizes me to go for g4, g5 straight away with the knight taking a full tempo to go away from where play is likely to be concentrated on. Queen d8 is playable, but I can play g5 anyway, and then knight takes g5, rook h1, h6, those types of ideas. I can also start with rook h1 and then go g5, hg, h6 as an option. Knight b8, like it's a good move. It's a good move on purely positional grounds. I actually quite like that Volodar thought of it, but I think it might be a bit slow. Rook c4, I completely blundered rook c4 here. Yeah, this is a good move, and it's definitely a very important illustration of why my previous move was kind of horrible. Although maybe I can still recover. Maybe I can go knight c6, b3, and then bring the knight back to f3 and go back to my dream of giving mate on the king's side. But I have lost valuable time. Queen d8 and rook c4, I think, is a very, very good sequence by Volodar here. You still have to do it, yeah. Like you have to make me soften up my queen side here. There's nothing better. Like you will not find a better option here as black. I do want to play like rook h3, rook g3, and then g5, and it's not that easy for black to actually even. Yeah, I think like the temptation to do this must be very strong, but I'm not sure if it's the right way to go about things. It's very playable though. Maybe I'm critical when I shouldn't be. I'll go rook h3 actually, because I like ef. ef queen f6 would have given me issues I did not want to be solving just yet. e5 queen e2 is quite annoying. Rook f8 is a decent move, but I think I can keep my things together here with like queen e3 or queen e2. I don't know which one is better. Should be watching out for knight b4. I think I can probably already play g5 though, right? No, hang on, knight takes d4 in the end. hg, knight g5, knight d4, and it stops me from playing rook f3 next move. I think maybe this is a good move though, because now I threaten rook f3 next. It's kind of important. Yeah, this is a very nicely calculated little jump by Volodar, but I don't think it actually saves him. Trying to choose the best square. I don't know what the best square is. I think this is okay, but there may have been better options. This is actually tricky to completely put to bed. He is defending very, very resourcefully here. I blundered queen takes g6, But the resulting rook endgame might be completely winning for me. So I don't know if, yeah, like this is, it's an attractive little combo, but it actually might be a mistake. I did miss this idea though, like bringing the king over to f6 is quite clever. But once again, I suspect it ends up not being enough. Yeah, h4 is obviously what he's trying to calculate. I think he should play it. Yeah, this is, I think, never going to work out the way he would like. Yeah, like we give a check. We go Rook E7. Yeah, this is probably not going to work out well. Although, having said all that, maybe I'm overselling how good my position is. But there's no useful way, like I can actually play G7 here, as I realized, which is a huge big deal. And I think my guys are just going to be faster. Yeah, I think we win here in the end. Even like I don't have to. There's no need for me to do this. I can just do this instead. Everything is under control. Yeah, I didn't need to take on h2. Yeah, that was an sure. Sure, of course, yeah. Of my first 3 games. Lost only 1. And apologies for all the coughing, yeah. Appear to be having some issues which are impossible to solve at short notice. Yeah, that was an interesting game against Volodar. I think it would be an interesting postmortem to figure out if I ever actually develop any attack on the king side if Black plays precisely. I have a feeling the answer is probably no. I have a feeling Black is generally doing quite well in those types of structures that Volodar got against me. He just, at some point, played, I think, a couple of moves a little bit too slowly, gave me a little bit too much initiative where he could have been more energetic. But all in all, I think he played that game well up until the moment where he had very, very little time. Even that rook ending that we got may have been holdable if he played h4 instead of rook d8. At that moment, I did not honestly see how I was going to... I now realize why he didn't, actually. I think I understand why he didn't play h4, and it's very cute. But I didn't see it at the time. And I don't know if I can bring that game up. And yeah, I don't think I can analyze anything because you guys aren't really watching my screen. So no actual post-mortem is technically possible. The position in the rook ending after I played king e4 and Volodar played rook d8. Instead of rook d8, obviously the critical move is h5, h4. And I think what he didn't like, probably, I'm guessing here, I don't actually know, of course, but I'm guessing he didn't like that after h4 I can play d5, h3, king f4, h2, and rook e1. And because his king is sort of in the mating net, he cannot take on d5 because rook e6 is made. I don't know if Are you keeping up, or because I can't really see? Yeah, but I think that final position is very unclear. After Rook E1, Black can play Rook B6, and the pawn on H2 is a huge nuisance. I'm probably not even better there. It's probably just a draw. So yeah, it feels like Vodar defended quite well. I probably should not have allowed that rook ending. And okay, good. So yeah, this is, as you can see, against Polina Shavalova, who is the absolute star of the new generation. She's been crushing it. Came very, very close to winning the super final last year, and in general is just a very, very strong player. Back to trying and failing at playing the Najdorf. I don't know why I do this to myself. At least this appears to be a surprise somehow, which is not nothing. Whoa, okay. Not something I have ever properly looked at. But it's like, I think Magnus played this move, so it cannot be bad. I just wonder how I'm supposed to respond. Can do something funky, but like we can switch to like maybe the Dragendorf or something. Like how bad can the Dragendorf be with the move A3? Probably not very bad, right? I'm pretty sure this is not the refutation of A3. I'm pretty sure if you play G6 here, the position becomes very decent for white. But I just want to have a playable, unclear position on the board by move 15. I'm not really very interested in refuting anything. I don't think you're supposed to castle short, though, because in these lines, the fact that Black played A6 is generally quite okay, and White very often at least wants to play A4. So I think it's not unreasonable to think that in many cases I will just end up being a full tempo up. Like this is a theoretical position in which White played A3 for no particular reason. It's not a bad move, but like normally your bishop would already be on G5 here as White, and the pawn would be on A2. A3 is, as people do this more and more often, in all kinds of Sicilians, I think a lot of people have realized that A3 is actually playable as a way to stop the kind of B5, B4 standard counterplay. It's very playable in a lot of positions where it wouldn't even be like on the radar in the previous generations. People didn't really do that very much, I think. In early years of the development of Sicilian defense, but in this particular line, it feels to me that I benefit more from the inclusion of A6, A3, because A6 definitely is something I was going to play regardless. This looks like a very, very good dragon for me. I would already feel like I should be fighting for advantage. And this is kind of, although, I mean, it's still actually exceedingly tempting, even despite the fact that bishop takes f6 exists, but I'm just going to do it because it's fun. I think bishop takes f6 was stronger, though. I think, yeah, just spending no time at all on b takes e3 was maybe not the best course of action, when there was definitely a very viable alternative she could have considered. After bishop f6, I was planning to continue sacrificing the exchange anyway. I kind of want to play g5 here. My issue is rook takes e4, not bishop g3. Also, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just taking on c3 and going from there. but it's boring. But like g5, rook e4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes g5 is, I think, a huge improvement for white in this position, because they would have something on the king side to use as counterplay. And honestly, this knight on e4 is definitely not worse than a rook. So yeah, I think regrettably I just have to go with what I think is the strongest play. Queen f4, I have g6, g5 here, which wins the exchange back. It's once again, yeah, queen b4 is a move I completely missed. Yeah, that's a good square. I did not see that square even existed, honestly. I can still play g5, though. And this is where, picking up the pawn on c3 before proceeding with the g6, g5 plan comes in handy, because in the exact same positions I could have gotten 3 moves ago, I have an extra pawn on the queen side. Or I don't have an extra pawn on the queen side. My opponent doesn't have a pawn on c3. It's a bit different. Yeah, I would never, ever play bishop g3 there. You kind of have to take on e4 and take your lumps. I think this is just too sad. And I mean, you probably get mated. Like, there's also a very specific tactical reason why it's not good. But even if this didn't exist, like from a purely practical standpoint, you should not be doing this to yourself. You should be trying to generate counterplay. But yeah, as I said, like in this particular case, you also probably get mated, which is not great. I guess queen takes g3 is the fastest. I mean, knight e1 was winning, but I think this is sort of the fastest way to get there. And the final game of the day is going to be white against Vincent Keimer, the great hope of German chess. I played him quite a bit online, and I played one live game against him when he qualified to the Grenke Classic by winning the Grenke Open, and played next year. He didn't do too well, but he, I think, performed very creditably. And he was more or less completely winning against me out of the opening due to some very pointed Peter Lecco preparation. Okay, I'll continue doing this for no particular reason. Why up? Yeah, like this is very upsetting, honestly. 97 here. This already throws me completely off book. I think the point is you do this and then you do this, right? And you are supposed to pretend you're slightly better. But judging by the speed with which Vincent is playing this, he doesn't believe I'm slightly better here. I don't know if I believe I'm slightly better. This looks like a very playable type of caro to me. Could also become very, very sharp, because like c6, c5 is a huge threat in these types of positions, and I have to have a reply to it. And I currently don't know if I have a reply to it. I could go a4, but I think black just completely ignores it, goes c5 anyway. I could play something like rook e1 and allow c5, and then just take on c5, but then I'm just not better. Those types of positions are extremely comfortable for black. But I currently am struggling to nominate anything that would be more attractive. I can play queen f3, but I don't know why I'm supposed to be provoking bishop b7 and then c5 next move. This doesn't look good. I guess I could go something like bishop g5, c5, c3, and just play from there. Not even, okay, this creates a threat of f6, which I kind of severely underestimated. It's clever. That is very clever. Forces me to spend a tempo on something I don't particularly want to be spending a tempo on. It's either bishop h4 or knight f3. Neither of those are particularly exciting, but I think knight f3 I like slightly better because it gives me more options on how to deal with the c6, c5 play. Immediate c5 I suspect is still playable even here, despite some things potentially hanging if Vincent plays it. Also, like h6 is entirely playable. Bishop b7 is very playable. A6, a5, there's a great scope of things Vincent could play here. Also, he is 200 points ahead of me on the website. 200 points. Yeah, how the turntables have... Well, I can never do the turntables joke properly. I need to actually look up how it goes. Which is a sad, sad indictment of my stand-up career, such as it is. This is not great. I'm also a minute down on the clock. I need to start playing faster. Stop prevaricating on about every single decision here. Just queen b6 is completely fine. I suspect knight f4 is completely fine. I'm trying to find something clever to play against knight f4, but I don't see what. Yeah, this is also not a mistake. Can I go bishop d5 and dc, or the immediate dc? I mean, I can, but is it any good? It might be, actually. There's bishop takes h2 there, but it kind of changes the position. No, I can only do it if I start with dc, and then I guess queen takes c5 is what he's planning. It's still possibly the best I have in this position. If bishop takes e5, then bishop takes d5 and bishop e3 might be extremely strong. So that's one thing that is not happening. But of the things that might be happening, like queen c5, bishop d3, queen b4, I'm probably not better at all. But it becomes a little bit of a tactical mess because I have queen e2, e4 threats. And at least, it forces my opponent to calculate. He can take on h2 and hg, but then we get this we get this new structure, which is very possibly quite good for black, but is extremely unclear. Yeah, this is what I assumed was the main line, but yeah, actually what I thought was a threat here isn't really a threat. If he goes like queen b6 here, I thought I can play queen e4, but then he has knight f6 and I have no threats. He just needs to remember to protect the bishop on b7. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this entire fishing expedition just gets completely refuted by this very simple move, which is sad. Now we're slightly worse, maybe even not slightly, honestly. I don't know why I think I'm only slightly worse here. Knight f4 is just going to be such an ugly position to be playing. Takes, I have to take on c8, and I don't have an immediate way of getting the light square bishops off the board, which means that, yeah, I don't know why Vincent continues not doing that, but I kind of thank him for it. If this happens with all the rooks off, at least I'm not getting immediately mated. I'm still going to be much, well, maybe not much, but I'm still going to be worse here. Bishop f4, unexpected. Maybe not bad, but definitely somewhat unexpected. I think he's trying to be a little bit too clever here. I kind of want to play g3, but it might backfire horribly. Can I do this? I think he's trying to be a little bit too clever. There was definitely a very, very solid argument for not inventing any of this and just going for like the most obvious play in the position, which was knight f4, bishop f4 on a number of occasions leading up to this. Yeah, this is very, very... this is a hugely improvement. I'm still not going to be better or anything, but this is obviously a huge improvement in fortunes. And yeah, this tactic is going to potentially win me the game even. Which is kind of shocking, honestly. Yeah, I'm taking that. I'm taking that every day of the week. All right. Went on a little bit of a tear there towards the end of the session. Don't think I started playing better. Just my opponents failed to capitalize on some very, very nice positions. But all in all, we'll count this as a success, and I will endeavor to be sharper tomorrow when I play Team Kramnik. Thanks to all of my opponents for making a valiant attempt at beating up on me, and yeah, I'll see all of you tomorrow. Tomorrow is another one of these where I expect I will struggle just as much as I did today.